that values continuous professional growth. Our district graduates citizens who are ethical and motivated to achieve their limitless potential. North Wasco is fully embraced by the community, reflecting its health and well-being.
Thank you, Director Richardson. So now our main topic of today is the reopening schools. So I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Bernal and our district leadership team.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming again tonight. We're pleased tonight to present to you a draft of our reopening plan. This is a comprehensive plan that will detail for you what reopening of our schools will look like this fall and shortly, just in about a week. So tonight we will be talking about those plans. My entire leadership team will be coming up tonight to explain different parts of our reopening plan. And again, it is a draft because we still are open to hearing feedback from our community and our stakeholders as we continue to develop these plans. Cindy, are you going to put that up there? Represent the...
Yeah. We just have no audio on here.
Go to the next slide. So as we return to in-person learning this fall, that is our priority, and it does align with the Oregon Department of Education's mandate that schools must provide full-time in-person instruction for all students every school day for the 21-22 school year. In collaboration with the Oregon Health Authority, ODE has updated their Ready Schools Safe Learners Resiliency Framework, which is what we have been utilizing to develop our reopening plans. Looks like this. There is a link in our presentation, and it's also available on the ODE website. And it was just recently, again, updated. They keep continuing to update it, so this is the most recent version, updated on August 17th. And I do anticipate they will, again, update it based on Governor Brown's just most recent announcement today.
I don't mean to interrupt you. Can we sit over here so we can see better?
Absolutely. Please do. If you'd like to shift, board members, absolutely. Please feel free. Look around. Oh, wait a minute.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I'm going to give him just In addition to utilizing this framework to develop our reopening plans, each school district is required to submit a safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of services plan, which is due by August 27th to the ODE. And there's also a link to what that template looks like in this presentation. That template looks different than what you're seeing here tonight, but all the elements of what you'll be hearing here tonight will be included in that plan that gets submitted on August 27th. This following draft plan has been developed using this resiliency framework and input from our stakeholders based on everything that we've been hearing, both in these meetings that we've been holding, numerous emails that we've received from our public, and various meetings that we've been holding with our stakeholders. We continue to solicit and welcome input from our stakeholders, and we will continue to regularly assess the plan and update it as needed, including in response to changing state and federal guidance and regulations. One of the focuses of the resiliency framework is on equity. North Wasco County School District remains committed to the health and safety of students, staff, and community, and the following guiding principles outlined by the Oregon Department of Education. One of the principles of equity is to ensure safety and wellness, and this means prioritizing the basic needs to support mental, social, and emotional health of students and staff. Secondly, centering on health and well-being. And this means committing to creating learning opportunities that foster creative expression, reflection, and connection, and centering on the needs of the whole child. Third, cultivating connection and relationships. And this means reconnecting through quality learning experiences and deep interpersonal relationships among families, students, and staff. Next, prioritizing equity. We recognize that the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on our marginalized communities, and this means applying an equity-informed lens to promote culturally sustaining and revitalizing educational systems that support every child. Lastly, innovating, rethinking our learning environments and investing in creative approaches to address unfinished learning. Another big focus of the resiliency framework is on mental health, specifically a focus on caring and connection. The ODE recognizes that mental health, which encompasses emotional, social, cognitive, and behavioral functioning, is one of the cornerstones of public education and central to building school cultures and climates where every student and all who serve them thrive. We know and understand that this new school year is likely to elicit a range of emotions. Therefore, I have asked every school principal to draft a plan that demonstrates and shows how they are planning to support student and staff health and well-being this year. The school year will begin with reflection and connection to support health and well-being of both students and staff. And then throughout the year, time and space will be created to reflect, connect, and make meaning of last year. This is what the ODE shows as an integrated model of mental health. ODE believes that mental health is centered within a continuum of care that meets each person's needs for physical and emotional safety, security, social connection, identity, diversity, and purpose. The ODE integrated model of mental health recognizes and emphasizes the strengths, resilience, and ways of knowing of each individual within a school community and prioritizes voice, choice, empowerment, and transparency. These values are supported by 4 interconnected pillars of practice, which are trauma-informed care, social-emotional learning, racial equity, and a strengths-focused multi-tiered system of support. We do have a return to existing state requirements for the 21-22 school year. We are still required to maintain a communicable disease management plan, and we are working to update that plan. It will be included in the plan that we submit on August 27th, and that plan will be available on our website as soon as it is updated. We are required to continue to exclude staff or students from school who have been exposed to COVID-19. We are required to maintain a health care and space that isolates sick or injured students. We are required to meet all standard instructional time requirements as laid out in Division 22. We will be required to complete an independent adoption of any digital instructional materials that will be used as core curriculum. We will be required this year to administer state assessments as required by state and federal law. And we will be required to reinstate the 10-day drop rule for enrollment, attendance and reporting practices, and notifications. Next, I'd like to invite our Director of Human Resources, Brian Schimmel, to come up, and he's going to start talking about the mitigation measures that we will be using this year.
Thank you. It should be noted and emphasized that what happens with COVID-19 between now and during the school year may require changes in our state's response efforts. And the back-to-school plan will be updated to reflect those changes. COVID-19 continues to change with new variants, and our knowledge of the mitigation effort grows over time. For these reasons, the guidance for responding to COVID-19 also changes. Currently, the best tools to protect individuals are vaccination for those eligible, physical distancing, face coverings, ventilation and airflow, hand washing, staying home if ill or exposed to someone with COVID-19. The next slide is one that is well known within the schools. Our mitigation practices for reducing the spread of COVID-19 include vaccination, protective equipment, which includes face covering barriers, which you'll see around the school, and also limited circumstances with accommodation face shields for certain individuals. Physical distancing, hand hygiene, as I said before, airflow and circulation in the buildings, sticking to cohorts as much as possible, student cohorts, isolation and quarantine if you are sick or have symptoms of COVID, and also the daily and nightly cleaning and disinfecting that goes on behind the scenes in our buildings. Focus on face coverings, mitigation measure number 1. In response to the rising cases of COVID-19 in the state and the emergence of the highly transmissible Delta variant, OHA has implemented a new statewide rule, which became effective on August 2nd of this year. That requires students, staff, and visitors to wear face coverings when in school buildings. This rule will be reviewed monthly to determine the need for it to continue. In cases where students may have been exposed to someone infected with COVID-19, and students maintain at least 3 feet of physical distance and consistently wear well-fitting face coverings and other general mitigation measures are in place in the school, then those students will not need to quarantine. Taken together, these 2 steps will ensure that fewer students will spend time out of school, under quarantine, or out sick with COVID-19. On the left of this next slide is what should happen. On the right is what should not. The green check mark, you can see the students are spaced at least 3 feet apart, and they're also, all of them are wearing facial coverings above their nose, covering their mouth, and so on. On the right, that's not happening. No face masks, and students are closer than 3 feet. If no face coverings are worn and students do not distance, it becomes more difficult to track those close contacts. Exposure to a confirmed case can compound when students shift to new classrooms or visit other indoor spaces in the school, such as the library or gym. This could lead to quarantining of full grades or full school closure. There are exceptions to this. Face coverings for all students, staff, and visitors will be required in school buildings and on district transportation with certain exceptions. These exceptions are while actively eating and drinking, while playing a musical instrument that requires the use of the mouth, while the sole occupant of a room and behind a closed door, for children under the age of 2. This rule applies to individuals at school during regular school hours and school engaged in educational activities outside of regular school hours, as well as when engaged in educational activities such as field trips or off-campus classes during school scheduled hours. The Oregon Health Authority will review this rule monthly to determine the need for it to continue. Next, I'd like to call our Chief Financial Officer, Carol Hott, and she'll talk more about mitigation strategies.
Hello, Carol speaking, and I'm introducing the Carol CFO of the school district. I've been here since July of last year, so I have some time to get to know some community. I'm here to talk about a few other mitigation measures. Measures 2 and 3 are physical distancing and hand washing. So we'll support and promote physical distancing of 3 feet at all times to the greatest extent possible. We'll be mindful of washing and sanitizing the hands frequently, especially before and after meals at all times. We promote physical distancing with 3 key ways, but many others, which 4 is cohorting, which refers to establishing a consistent group of students that stay together for a large portion of the day. In middle school and elementary, we'll do that to the greatest extent possible. Where we cannot cohort, in alignment with CDC recommendations, we use face coverings with a 3 feet distance, which is equally an effective mitigation strategy for cohorting navigation. Measure 5 is isolation and quarantine. Again, we do ask parents to keep your students home if they are symptomatic with anything that might be COVID related or any illness that help us spread. We also encourage individuals who are sick to stay home. We follow all the public health authority guidelines and requirements, and an exposure is defined as an individual who has close contact has close contact with less than 6 feet for longer than 15 minutes in a day. So they would have to isolate. However, the next slide, in alignment with recommendations from the CDC, there are exceptions to the quarantine. In a K-12 indoor classroom, students who are within 3 or more feet of an infected student, where both students are engaged in consistent and correct use of well-fitting face coverings and other K-12 school prevention strategies, such as face coverings, social distancing, ventilation, that students will not have to be isolated. This exception does not apply to teachers or staff, which still have to maintain 6 feet social distancing. Measure 6 is ventilation and cleaning protocols. They're effective measures to reduce viral spreads indoors, or committed to maintaining appropriate indoor air quality. Full ventilation and cleaning protocols are available on the district's website. We also promote the increasing the amount of outside air to the indoor system through HVAC and opening windows so better heating. We also have air filtration units and air purification units with the proper air filters to help remove virus-containing particles. And we definitely have daily routines in high touch services that also includes electrical strategy. I would ask for the staff and introduce.
Good evening, everybody. Scott Winback, Director of School Improvement. And we hear that our folks online cannot hear us very well with the handheld, so we're switching to this microphone. My first slide that I'm presenting on is vaccinations. For those who heard the news today, this is very timely. At this time, students are not required to get the COVID vaccine in order to attend school. In the event of a COVID exposure, students who are eligible to receive the vaccine have the choice to voluntarily disclose their vaccine status, and then the quarantine time period may not be required. And announced just today, Governor Brown has directed the Oregon Health Authority to create a rule that will require all teachers, staff, contractors, and volunteers to be vaccinated. School personnel will have until October 18th or 6 weeks after a vaccine is federally approved, whichever comes later, to be fully vaccinated. The rules are still being worked out, including penalties and who it applies to and when. All district employees have had the opportunity to be vaccinated and will continue to have that opportunity. Our district will continue to provide information to families regarding vaccination opportunities. Regarding our online program, we know that a number of families are very interested in this. We are preparing to offer a virtual online program to families of students who are immunocompromised and or medically fragile, or who live with a member of their family directly impacted by the effects of COVID-19. And we'll be ready to share more information about that program very soon. Regarding visitors and volunteers, due to the current surge of the Delta variant and the ineligibility of our students under the age of 12 to be vaccinated, visitors and or volunteers will not be permitted on school campuses during the day at the beginning of the school year. So this is just to start things off. We will continue to meet with the local health authority weekly to review this topic, and if and when conditions improve, in collaboration with the recommendation of our health authority, we will consider and make adjustments in this area.
Real quick, what metrics will you be using to make that decision?
Yeah.
Because I'm.
If we can keep comments and questions until the end of the presentation, please, and we'll open up the public comment accordingly. I'd like to get the administrator the opportunity to get through the presentation. Thank you.
My name is Teresa Peters. I'm the principal at Dry Hollow Elementary, and three principals will be detailing the day in the life of an elementary school student. Students will arrive between 7:40 and 7:55 in the morning. They will be visually screened and sent to an assigned cohort location, so they're with their cohort. Further screening will happen during attendance when it's taken in class. We will be serving breakfast in the classroom. Breakfast in the classroom is free to all of our students. And 3 foot of distancing will be maintained during breakfast. And we will work to make sure that the students are facing the same direction as they're eating, since of course they will have their masks off. During the day, we have layered multiple mitigation strategies that are in place. We have physical distancing with students at 3 foot whenever possible, masking for all staff and students while indoors, hand hygiene, so frequent washing and using hand sanitizer. We also will practice and teach respiratory etiquette, remembering to sneeze or cough into your elbow and washing your hands directly after. We have true HEPA filters and increased ventilation within the classroom setting and all of the learning environments in the schools. And we have seating charts for contact tracing.
Hello, I'm Carol Dossett. I'm the principal of Colonel Wright Elementary School. So, a day in the life of an elementary school student. There will be targeted instruction focused on the priority state standards. These are the focus standards that will be the most intensive that students and teachers can work on during the year. We'll work on connection and community building throughout the day and at specified times during the day. Wellness opportunities are also available for staff during their weekly staff meetings. There will be stable cohorts for specials in PE, music, and library. Stable cohorts again for intervention services in English language learning and in Title I. And enrichment activities for students who are at or above the benchmark already. We know that we have students coming to the school in a variety of learning situations. And so we will be catering instruction as best as we can to these students. And then we continue to accelerate that unfinished learning. During lunch and recess, we will continue to try to be socially distanced with 3 feet minimum at lunch. And as already mentioned by Teresa, we will try to have people facing in the same direction when they are eating their lunch. And they will be in stable cohorts. Masks are optional for students outside of the building and on the playground. Again, social distancing is monitored, but we are free of masks at that time if students want to. And the stable cohorts of students will be maintained at all times. That's recess, it's lunch, during their intervention time and in their classes.
Good evening, I'm Sandra Harris. I'm the principal of the Dalles Middle School. Welcome back to the life of a middle school student.
On August 30th, sixth graders only will be coming into our building, and on August 31st, all of our students, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade will be beginning. Doors will open at 7:40 on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, and at 9:15 on Wednesday. Students will be asked to come into the class, put their belongings away in their lockers, which was the first, we didn't use lockers last year. They'll be welcomed into class, teachers in smaller groups as they sit and wait for their class to start. They'll be visiting with the teacher as well as each other, connecting, and as well as eating breakfast. Safety first at the Dalles Middle School. Some of the mitigation strategies that will be in place include some of the things you've also heard, but hand sanitizing will be frequent. Students will be visually screened as they enter the school as well as entering the classroom. Students will be socially distant at 3 feet as much as possible, wherever possible. And students will be wearing masks at all times. Students will be in small groups, as I said, as they eat breakfast in the classroom and wait for class to start. Hello, I'm Julie Grzinski. Excuse me, I'm Julie Grzinski, the assistant principal at the Dalles Middle School. Welcome to our building. So students will rotate in grade level cohorts through 4 core classes and 2 elective classes during their day. And in addition, students have a pride class, which is a homeroom that we use for care and connection, organization, and homework support. And then students will engage in a social emotional learning lesson every week through the Second Steps Middle School program. We will be also using outdoor learning and outside lunch recess to support mask breaks for students, and of course monitoring the 3-foot distancing that we've been asked to do. PE classes will be using the locker room to change. This last year we did not use our locker room, so that's a change in what we'll be doing, and they will also be encouraged to have class outside as much as possible.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kurt Evans. I'm the principal here at the Dalles High School. With me tonight is Vice Principal Phil Williams and our new athletic director, Billy Brost. The approach this year is just simply to start with normal school life at a high school. Start with that context, because the belief is, of course, that the more the mental health and purpose returns to the life of our students when they are positively engaged in school. And that is, I find very few people that disagree with that. So that's our premise to begin, and adjust things as we go. An example of that is we started August in a very normal way. We had registration online. People came into the building to get their lockers and their schedules. It went great. 600 students registered that way, and we've had 100 since that have come in that way. Students got their picture taken. Link crew, where ASB has been in the building, planning the first day for 9th graders. We're planning a 9th grade assembly. Normally in the first day of school, we plan an all school assembly. That we can't do. So just trying to create as much normalcy as we can. If we get to a bump in the road, we're backing off. A lot of the same mitigation measures, well, when I say a lot, I mean most. There's some that we can do, such as cohorting, but majority of the mitigation measures that are district-wide will also take place at our school. We'll begin on August 30th with 9th grade only. Our link crew, that's a group of students and staff, will take them through a program throughout the day. Of course, our plan is just to reestablish routines, structure, and consistency. The thing that sticks out to me most from last year is what we did when we went to CDL. We had no choice, but we removed a lot of the purpose in the lives of our students. And coming back to school with activities and routine and structure, that's what we're doing. We're giving them their purpose again. And so that's what our goal is, just as we restart. Provide Social emotional learning, and again, there's the approach to that is kind of a tiered approach. I believe all the staff will be trained in on the first day of training, suicide prevention. All staff will be trained in that and those indicators, so we'll be aware of that. Most of the students, we believe, will emotionally improve by just being at school and being connected in a healthy way to school. And then tier 2 is with our counselors, and then tier 3 is more significant interventions. Caring and connecting with our students, this is something that really, COVID aside, we had in place or was starting to have in place before, and that's just ensuring that students are connected to the school in some other way than just the core content or their core classes. There's gobs and gobs of data that shows that the student that is connected to something else besides their core stuff, anything, music, drama, sport, they're far more successful in school. So we're just going to continue forward with that as well. Still planning ASB activities. I mentioned, freshman first day assemblies, and then backing down as we go. We're not going to run it. They had a dance scheduled for, I think, the 3rd of September. We're not going to do that, obviously, but homecoming dance at the end of October. Going to keep moving forward with that with the hope that things improve by then. We're increasing TAT stands for teacher access time. And again, lots of data that shows that when teachers have set aside time to meet individually with their teachers outside of class, failure rate drops, A and B grades improve. So we're increasing that by 100%. Last year, or previous years, we had 2 days a week of that. And this upcoming years, we'll have 4 days a week. Okay, I'll turn it over to Phil Williams, who'll go through the next slide.
I'm Phil Williams. I'm the vice principal at the Dallas High School, and I'm just going to cover what it's going to look like for high school students when they return. We'll have an 8 a.m. start time with the usual, what we had prior to COVID, 70-minute classes, 5-minute passing times, and a 2:45 dismissal for those students that need TAT will start 5 minutes after that, so it'll be available to them. Students will have full course loads of 5 classes or whatever they need. If they're a senior, they may only need 2 or 3 classes. They will be required, as all the other presenters have said, to wear their mask while indoor, maintain 3 feet distance to the greatest extent possible during classes. We may have a couple classes where they're going to be a little tight, like in a culinary class or something like that, where they're working a little closer together, but we want to keep them and make sure that we maintain that distancing. Mask will be optional when outdoors, and mask breaks will also be available throughout the day and in an outdoor area. Breakfast and lunch are going to be a grab and go operation with the students eating outside or spaced in the hallways or classrooms. And teachers, we're going to encourage them to do outdoor learning activities, have those windows open to increase airflow through the classroom. And we also will take part in the weekly updates with the North Central Public Health. I'm going to introduce our athletic director, Billy Brost, and he'll talk about athletics.
Good evening. My name is Billy Brost. I'm the new athletic director at the Dallas High School. I want to talk to you a little bit tonight about what our plan is for athletics, what we've been doing. Our goal is to return athletics to normal operation as much as possible. Regular travel schedule, regular season, and fans admitted. We will require masks for indoor sports until further notice. That includes indoor practices, weight training, things of that sort, as well as the actual game events. All fans will be masked indoors. We will do the screening and sign in at practices for players. We have been doing that so far through the first week of practices for our fall sports teams. Other simple safety measures in place, such as not sharing water bottles, wiping down equipment, etc., have been put into place. My fellow athletic directors throughout the conference and our non-conference opponents in Oregon, we've been in continuous communication with each other about the status of their districts and their teams. Weekly meetings with the Public Health Authority Updates communicated to stakeholders through multiple channels. I plan on doing that myself via email and our various athletic social media accounts. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amy Hampton. I'm the new Student Services Director for North Wasco County School District, also known as the Special Ed Department. We will continue to provide the intervention services that we have for our students to make sure that they are meeting the needs of our students, especially to address that unfinished learning that some students will come back to us with due to the COVID-19 closures of some schools and the times we weren't able to be in class the same way we have been in the past. The big change this year is we're going to be doing something that are referred to as individualized COVID-19 recovery services. So this is a new OAR that was just passed saying that it's going to be up to each IEP team to meet for each special education student before sometime within the first few months of them coming back to school, for us to review data about each of the students and see where were they before we closed, what happened while we were closed, and now as they return to school, what is their performance looking like? Then also start looking at that progress as they return to the classroom and compare it to how the other students have been doing during the same time period. If there are students who are continuing to struggle more than we would expect to see, then we'll look and determine if there's any additional services that they may need to finish remedying this unfinished learning that they have. This may not be something that every student needs, but we will address it for every student to make sure that we are meeting the needs individualized, as is our job through the special ed department.
Hello, Lisa Caseberg, Director of Transportation. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what a day in the life of transporting all of our students looks like. So communication, I think, is a real key in these times. And we just recently, at the beginning of this week, sent out 2,000 letters to every household in our district, to all of our families, even if they are in walk zones. The thought is that they could be riding on a field trip bus, sports bus. We have a lot of kiddos that go to daycare centers. So I went ahead and sent out notifications to every household in our district. Some of the things on this letter that went out, and it did go out in English and Spanish, talked about the mitigation measures that we are using to keep our students and staff safe on buses. And there we are. Students are expected to wait patiently, and we are asking them to keep 3 feet distance at the bus stops even. Students will wear face coverings while they're at the bus stops. Even though they're outside, as you can imagine, and if we're picking up students on 10th Street and we have a line of students, we want to make sure those students are ready to go and board the bus. These are all measures that we used this past fall and this past school year. Students will be visually screened. We did have isolation seats in the front seat in the front of the bus if we had any questions or a student asked us if they were, or let us know that they were not feeling well or presented any symptoms. We did ask them to sit in the isolation seat. And that was just for protection, their protection, and other students on the bus protection. Students will be required to wear a face covering or a mask at all times when on the bus. If a student doesn't have a face covering or a mask, we do have lots of them. We went through a lot of them. Every bus is equipped with 20 extra masks at all times. We kept them and we handed them out daily. Families and households will still be assigned seats and asked to sit together. We are trying to cohort as much as possible. We do ask that families and households sit together still. It doesn't matter what grade they're in. We did contact tracing sheets on the buses. This was quite extensive on a bus, a clipboard with a lot of contact tracing sheets. I have piles and piles of them, but they did come in handy, and actually the drivers really liked them. They got to know their students very well. We have a lot of data from those sheets. And previous Superintendent Peters and I, we, from time to time, when we got a notification of a positive case, within minutes, we were able to look up who rode the bus that day, how long they were on the bus, and who they rode with. So we were able to narrow that down quite quickly. Ventilation, per CDC recommendations, whether it's in a school building or on a school bus, is very imperative. We do keep the windows cracked. We do have roof vents open when feasible. Cleaning procedures. We've been doing this from day one. After AM routes, the drivers themselves will wipe down high touch points, handrails, windowsills, tops and backs of seats after the AM routes. And in the evening time, buses will be cleaned by the facilities staff, someone on facilities with an electrostatic sprayer. So those are our mitigation measures. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Dottie Ray, and I'm the Director of Nutrition. Nice to see you all. This school year, we will operate the seamless summer option. All meals will still be served at no charge to students. SSO maintains the nutrition standards of the standard school meal program. We have a strong emphasis on providing fruits and vegetables, fluid milk, whole grains within sensible calorie levels. We're really excited to be back in the cafeteria. I think if my staff never sees a brown paper bag, they'd be really happy. So they're really excited to provide the hot meals for breakfast and lunch. We're looking forward to continuing our goals of helping to eliminate plastic waste with some programs that we started a while ago, and cutting down on food waste with compost programs in each of the schools. We're also looking forward to our continued partnership with the food bank, with our food box distributions. And right now, our only limitation that we're having some issues with our supply chain. We've simplified our menus for the first 3 weeks of service to help prevent disruptions in meal patterns. Thus far, we have had minimum shortages. However, we're just starting. And we're already seeing some delivery challenges with times and such. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, I'm Alex Simari. I'm the Interim Director of Facilities for the school district. And I wanted to go through a little bit of what we're doing in facilities. One of our objectives in facilities is to make sure that the people that are help cleaning these buildings are working also safely. We are conducting a refresher training on August 25th with the custodial maintenance teams. In that training, we'll be reviewing the latest COVID cleaning and disinfecting information and setting the standards for the school year and the protocols in which we want those teams to follow. We'll also be retraining on the electrostatic sprayers. What will the custodial services look like? The day in the custodial's focus will be on roving, cleaning touch points, patrolling bathrooms, hallways, lobbies, disinfecting those areas, and all touch points, high points and low points that are traveled throughout the day. This will include wiping down doors, windows, handles, counters, and handrails, etc. What will our night crews be doing? Our night crews will be cleaning and disinfecting all the classrooms, the offices, the foyers, the stairwells, the bathrooms, gyms. And they were also responsible for trash removal as well. Night crews will be wiping down tables, wet surfaces using a Ecolab peroxide multi-surface cleaners, and the night crew will also be vacuuming nightly. One of the concerns that most school districts have is product and supply. So what we've done is we've went in and we've ordered enough product and supplies and the district is well stocked now with sanitation supplies such as hand soap, hand sanitizers, gloves, masks, disinfectants, bags, paper products, and other sanitation needs. So we will not have a shortage in any of those areas. Thank you.
Lastly, I've talked before just about shared responsibility and just the shared responsibility we all have in this community to keep our community safe and healthy. And this responsibility asks that each person maintains their own health as well as respect the individual decisions of others regarding their own health and safety. And we do expect that persons exhibiting COVID-like symptoms should not enter any of our school facilities. And we ask that this mutual respect shown by adults in our community, it really does provide a powerful example to our children in our community. So we do ask that everyone share in this responsibility and really model for our children that we do share in this responsibility together. And hopefully together, we can bring our children back in a week safely to school and have them back every day and keep our doors open 5 days a week for full-time learning and keep our schools open all year long. We really put this together to give you a comprehensive look at what school hopefully will look like this year for everyone's children. And now, Chair Aparicio, we will turn it over if any of you have questions for our leadership team.
Board members, any questions from your end on the information? Ouch. Rebecca and Dawn on Zoom? Or Rebecca and Dawn on Zoom?
Chair Aparicio. One question, it may be technical, it may not be known yet. If students are picked up by the school bus and they may appear sick and they're seated in an isolation seat, then what happens? Yes, so we heard from transportation that students, when they're picked up by the school bus, if they appear sick, they may be asked to or be seated in an isolation seat. And then I was just curious what happens next. Are they taken to school? Yeah.
I can help.
Yeah.
So we have the isolation seat in front of the buses. And what we did, the protocol was that we would, if a parent was there, we would ask the student to remain with the parent. That wasn't an option. We had to transport the student. That was mandated by OED. We did not leave the school. So we would call ahead. My drivers would call in to me. I would call ahead and let the school know that we have a student in isolation seat. Staff would meet us right at the bus, get that student off the bus first, bring them into the isolation room, and they would proceed from there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else, or Rebecca or Dawn, any questions for the administrators? I did have just personally myself had a couple, and it's more just making sure that folks in the audience kind of understood. We actually have a couple layers. So Director Caseberg, her transportation side is actually governed by federal law. And so up until the mask mandate that the state did, that was always a requirement because of federal law on that, and that applied to all public transportation, inclusive of our bus operations. So she's kind of a unique instance in where she's actually governed by federal as well as state. And then the rest of the, masking and whatnot that we saw is all governed by the more recent Oregon administrative rules in the state level of that. So just wanted to make sure everyone understood that distinction. And then I did want to just kind of give a shout out to the administrators. As you saw, there's a lot of stuff in addition to not only the day-to-day and providing education to our kids that has been thrown on them on their day-to-day, right? But what I will say, and what I am proud of our district here, is that by doing a lot of these measures last year, we didn't have to shut down a building. So if you guys recall, when we came back to hybrid, we kept our buildings open. Probably much like you guys, I was scanning newspaper articles and trying to see what is going on out there. And sure enough, other districts, unfortunately, had to close down buildings in their entirety for weeks at a time. I am proud to say that at E21, we did not do that. Now, that's not to say that we didn't have positive cases, because we did, and we worked through those. We have a great relationship with our public health department, and they helped us work through those. We did the necessary quarantine, and things kept going. And I can sit here today very confident knowing these administrators in the room that we can do that starting here on the 30th. So I just want to give a shout out because I know all the administrators here are working around the clock. In most cases, especially as on a day-to-day, we get updates from Salem and everything. But I think last year, in my mind, was a huge success as we compare ourselves to the district amongst others, even locally and more broadly across the state. Last call, any other board members want to say anything or questions? Okay. All right, with that, we'll move into public comments. I will actually, this week, or this meeting, I should say, unlike last week, I will start with the written comments, and then we'll switch over into those that had signed up. So again, if you'd like to make a comment, please sign there at the end of the table, and then I will call you forward accordingly based off of the sign-in sheet. So starting off with the first one, this is from Kim Barrett, and it reads, Dear District 21 board members, after watching the last board meeting on August 12th, I felt like voices of vulnerable families were left out. Not because we weren't invited, but because we didn't write in to voice our concerns. As I'm aware of the inconvenience a mask can be, especially for long periods of time, I support the decision for masks to be worn in all indoor public settings. I myself know that the masks aren't 100% effective, but limit the spread. As we can all see, help during the year were mandated and numbers were down, except for holidays when families and friends gathered when advised not to. My family has more than one vulnerable family member to protect against COVID-19. Both my children started and ended the year with distance learning. One on Acellus and one enrolled in SLC at TDMS. My daughter was enrolled as an in-person because of being on IP in the SLC classroom, but got her sessions via Zoom. She excelled more in the past year than what she received in person the years prior. We found what worked best for her. My other daughter missed the social aspect of school, but had no issues with the online studies and received good grades. I was there to encourage her and help along the way, but that's part of parenting, right? We can't blame lack of support at home on teachers. This past year has taught me that it's hard getting anyone to understand and put themselves in our family's shoes. A simple cold virus could land my child in the hospital, as it has in the past, and pneumonia almost every time. So yes, COVID has been real for us. We have taken all precautions, no friends, no large gatherings, and no, we did not attend large gatherings indoors. We have missed funerals and weddings of our loved ones, not because of fear, but because we know the probability of catching a highly communicable virus with a vulnerable individual. I'm asking you to consider continuing to offer distance learning as an option for vulnerable families. A mask is not going to protect my child when other children aren't wearing one. Honestly, even if masks are required, I don't feel it's a safe environment for my child. I've witnessed many instances where masks weren't enforced last year in hybrid learning and don't feel like it's a safe environment for my child at this time. Please don't take that option away from vulnerable families and staff that have medical issues of their own. Don't forget, we're all in this together. Thank you, Kim Barrett. Next one comes from Shannon Hansel. Hello, I have 2 children in the North Wasco County School District. I just saw a post that says the state has left the decision up to the school superintendents on whether or not to vaccinate or whether or not the vaccine should be mandatory. I truly hope that a mandatory decision is not made in our county. This vaccine was rushed and the long-term effects unknown. There has been a lot of immediate effects, especially in children. I will not be allowing this to be out in my children. The history or vaccine shows 15 to 30 years from a virus start to a vaccine being approved.
The 6 months for this one is alarming. I truly believe that it is not in the best interest of our children to force this. Thank you, Shannon Hansel. Next comment is from Shelley Shaver. Hello, my name is Shelley Shaver. I have a student at high school. He has asthma and compromised lungs. I worry about his health and everyone's for that matter. We have all been fully vaccinated in our household and feel it is very important and the responsible thing to do to protect ourselves and others. I also feel it is important to have our kids in school full time. I am okay with masking. I am asking you to consider to have vaccinated children attend in person, non-vaccinated kids do remote learning. The families that have taken the time to make sure they are doing what they can to stay healthy and stop the spread should in no way have to suffer setbacks due to the non-vaxxers. I have seen my child's health suffer due to the pandemic, depression, anxiety, stress. He is a good student and has goals academically. He wants to go to college and his grades are very important to him. This is another reason he needs to be in school learning. Distance learning is not the same and very hard for him. Thank you for taking the time to read my email. I know everyone feels different about this topic. I wanted to let you know how we feel as a family. He is so excited to start the year and we are hoping to see him in school. Thank you, Shelley Shaver. Next one comes from Courtney Middleton. First of all, thank you to all the school board members for your service and welcome Dr. Bernal. My name is Courtney Middleton. I was born and raised here in the Dalles and graduated from the high school in 2007. I teach kindergarten at Colonel Wright and I also live in the Colonel Wright neighborhood. On Monday, August 16th, I watched the virtual town hall meeting for Eastern Oregon from ODE and OHA. I noticed there were several good questions and comments during the meeting, and I hope our local school board members will also ponder these topics. It is my hope for North Wasco that it is decided to not only choose to uphold the minimum safety measures set by the state, but to also have additional safety measures in place to protect our students and staff members. Please continue to enforce a statewide indoor mask mandate for all, provide staff members with higher grade masks for the maskless lunch and recess duties, and continue to improve the ventilation in our buildings. Additionally, I would also hope that there will be a well thought out and equitable plan in place should groups of students and our staff members have to quarantine. This plan should also include adequate prep time for staff should they need to switch to online teaching, and a plan for school staffing should illnesses exceed available substitutes for in-person classes. Lastly, I hope the district will implement an emergency sick leave policy should staff members run out of leave due to COVID-related incidents. Thank you for your time and thank you for continuing to keep our community safe. Courtney Middleton. Next one is from Shanna Blumenthal. Welcome. I am a parent of a soon-to-be 7th grader at TDMS. I'm also a healthcare worker and would strongly encourage the district to follow guidelines and require masks in the schools. Our local healthcare system will not be able to keep up with a surge of pediatric patients, and our kids deserve to be protected. It's a small and very easy thing to wear masks. Please keep the required masks at our schools. Shanna Blumenthal. And lastly, we have one from a student, Bryce Newby. To the North Wasco County School Board. My name is Bryce Newby. I'm going into 6th grade in the Dalles Middle School. At the beginning of online school, it felt like a long spring break. But after a few weeks, I wanted to see the people in my class again. After I finished 4th grade and went to summer break, I was expecting it to blow all over. Then when my mom told me that I was going back online, it was horrible. My 5th grade year was going to be great. I had the teacher I wanted, and my best friend was in my class. But then it stayed online forever. Even hybrid learning was hard. My little sister, who was going into kindergarten, her very first school year, was online. So that means the first day of school, she couldn't pack her backpack and get into her fancy new clothes in the morning or eat lunch with her new friends, and couldn't use her new lunchbox. This still has a tag on it to this day. We are now in the summer of 2021, and it feels like it has been forever. I trust that my parents have my best interests in mind, and we believe that full in-person school is safe and necessary. Thank you, Bryce Newby. That concludes the written. Cindy, can I get the sign-in sheet? All right, and last call. Anyone else want to, before I start calling people up, anyone else looking to comment tonight? See no hands. Okay. So those of you who attended last year, this will be kind of reiteration, but just kind of read the guidelines for the public comment period. But speakers will be limited to a 3-minute presentation for your issue. Speakers may offer objective criticism of district operations and programs, but the board will not hear comments regarding any individual district staff member. If you do have any specific complaints about a staff member, I'll help you kind of find our board policy KL/GBM, which is complaints for consideration of a legitimate complaint involving a staff member. And that also goes for commendations involving any staff members. Those should be sent to Superintendent Bernal, who will then forward it to the employee and their supervisor, as well as the board. As you come up, please just state your name as well, so we can record that within our meeting minutes. And then, let's see, starting out, we have Brandy Neri. Neri? Okay, come on up, Brandy. The button, and then Dave's going to be the timekeeper. So when there's 30 seconds left, he'll give you the high sign.
My name is Brandy Neri. My son is 5, and he will be attending Chenoweth Elementary. First and foremost, I'd like to thank all of you for having us and for your continued effort to hear all of us out when it comes to the safety of our children. I had this whole thing written out, and then I watched the last slide that came up, and I'm just going to reiterate about the responsibility of everybody to make this all work. So this responsibility asks each person to both maintain their own health as well as respect the individual decisions of others regarding their own health and safety. I'm going to repeat that. Respect the individual decisions of others regarding their own health and safety. But it seems to me that that rule only applies to the people that are willing to obey. We are allowing government and politics to instill authority in educators to punish our children for not following rules that they don't even follow themselves. I'm talking about, I'm very middle of the road when it comes to masks, but that really stuck out to me. We are also allowing our government to instill fear into our educators, who then instill fear in our children that if they don't make the right choice, they are breaking the rules or they are causing harm unto others, when there really isn't any other choice but to obey. And that was proven just now. Because it's either wear a mask or you don't participate. I'm just gonna get to the point at the end of this because I had a lot, but I urge you to support giving our children and our families a choice. Give the parents and children who feel it is necessary to wear a mask to do so without giving them a label. Give the parents and children who feel it isn't necessary or possibly have medical or sensory issues the choice without giving them a label. This is what we are supposed to be teaching our kids, individualism, that their voice matters, that if something makes them scared or uncomfortable, that they have the choice or the right to do something about it without repercussions from those they trust the most, which is us as their parents and you as their teachers, and the guidance for the next, if you have a kindergartner, 12 years of their life. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for that, Brandy. All right, next we have Jody Ketchum.
We're going to go ahead and stand. I am Jody Ketchum, and this is
Charlene Bonham. Sylvia Brock, President of the North Wasco ESP. Co-President.
And I am President of the D21 EA. So the North Wasco ESP Union and the D21 EA would like to thank the board for their pursuit of a new superintendent for our district. Both of our unions have had the opportunity to meet with Dr. Bernal, and we have appreciated her open door policy, her willingness to problem solve, and her willingness to be transparent and upfront. with us on what she can and cannot control. We want to further thank the board for holding these meetings and being transparent and open to concerns and questions of staff and parents. I hope that each of you had an opportunity to read all of our comments from the survey that we brought to you at the last meeting. Awesome. Do you have any questions for us or anything that stood out to you that you would like us to address?
Just generally, I think let's just keep the lines of communication open. I think the feedback was great. So, I mean, I think it was super helpful, at least for me, to read through all 80 of those. So let's just make sure we keep the lines of communication, because as we saw today, there's going to be more twists and turns that we have to kind of navigate as a team together.
Thank you. Our unions are concerned about how fast and furious the school year is opening up with full in-person instruction. While every staff member is excited to have all of our students in person, we are concerned about their safety and how we will safety distance them in our small classrooms. We do remain concerned for our staff that have few sick days and may become ill or have to quarantine for long periods of time. We currently have several members under quarantine because they have a child that has contracted COVID. The variant is affecting our children differently, and they are becoming ill. In closing, the D21 and the North Wasco ESP Union would like to notify you that we will be asking the district to reinstate our hybrid and CDL MOUs with some possible changes so that we are all prepared for what may come. We hope to not have to go CDL or hybrid, but in the case that we do, we want to limit our disruption to the education of our children. We want to make sure that we have those in place so that there aren't long periods of negotiation or any of those things that can happen. So that is our goal. We want to thank you again for listening.
Thank you for that, Jody. All right, up next we have Tara Donovan.
Mental health concerns have been pushed aside this past year and a half, and it needs to be addressed. I do appreciate Kurt mentioning as normal, like we want to be as normal as possible, and I agree with almost everything that he said except for the masks. Masks are not normal and they're not healthy for our kids mentally. They make them timid and they're scared of everything. Newly released data from CDC revealed a surge of self-harm and hospitalizations from poor mental health among teens. Psychiatric-related hospital visits among young people increased 31%. Suicide attempts in girls increased almost 51%. Kids are cutting themselves and overdosing. The increase in antidepressants in kids has skyrocketed. Many of these suicides are due to social isolation. Mental health in our children should be more of a concern than this virus. Not being in school full-time is more of a risk to our children. I would also argue that mental health issues directly correlates with kids wearing masks. According to CDC, suicide is the second leading cause of death in our youth, and it continues to increase. A new study out of UK researchers found the fatality rate for youth and children under the age of 18 from COVID was 5 times lower than from suicide and 10 times lower from trauma. And those were recent studies. Why are we punishing our kids? When a child is 5 times more at risk of committing suicide from mental health illness, from social isolations than they are from COVID, then why are we not addressing this problem? We will make sure you are held accountable if it's not addressed. Stop thinking our government cares about our health, because they don't. I was just on vacation and we got shoved into the airplanes like sardines, and even worse in the airports, literally touching each other. Yet you want to risk the kids' health by putting them in hybrid learning, which is not good enough, online, wearing masks. This is not acceptable. As far as the governor's letter goes from Monday, and I quote, "Wearing a mask is an act of kindness." That's pathetic. If we need a mask to teach our kids kindness, we're doing something wrong. Our kids need to stay in sports, and they do not and should not be masked while doing so. This virus is not going away, but you continue to have excuses as why online learning, hybrid learning, and masking our kids are what's best. There are schools all around us fighting for our kids right now. St. Mary's kept their kids in school full-time all last year. Dufur just announced they will be in school full-time, and they're going to the measures of taking tents or putting tents up to make sure they're not masking their kids. Horizon has given the choice to the parents for masking. Across the country, schools have stayed open all last year, unmasked. Your job is to educate our kids, not decide what's best for their health. It should be left up to the parents to decide whether or not we want our kids in class full-time and whether we want to have masks on them in school and during sports. Start fighting for our kids, please.
Thank you, Cheryl. Up next, we have J.R. Runyon.
Hey there, good evening. I'm J.R. Runyon. I'm a PE teacher here in the district at Dry Hollow Elementary. This will be my 17th year teaching PE. The reason I wanted to speak tonight, kind of echoing on Tom Conklin, I wasn't here last time. I was able to watch you guys through the Zoom and all that stuff, but I just wanted to kind of echo a few things that he talked about. And as far as our perspective as a physical educator and what we've gone through this past year and a half with masks on our kids. So at that, and then I'll talk about the vaccine. So the first thing, I guess, what I've noticed over the past year and a half with kids, first of all, I am pro in-person learning. I'm pro no masks. That's if I had it my way, and I know everybody would probably feel the same if things were different. However, with physical education especially, it is so stinking hard to breathe in these things. It's hard for me to talk in these things, right? So throughout the day when I'm teaching, I might change my mask maybe 3 or 4 times, and all I'm doing is really talking. And that's just the spit coming out of my mouth or whatever, and I can imagine these kids, the elementary kids at least, they come in there and I have to dumb down my physical education curriculum for them so that they can actually get through it without having to sit on the side, right? And what I've noticed is from last year to this year, when we went to CDL learning, which by the way didn't work very well for physical education, you can ask all the way around. It was a novelty at the time, right? And so it started out exciting. It's kind of cool. It's kind of fun. Whatever kids are showing up for Zooms, that kind of thing, and then slowly it just trickles off. The same kind of thing happened with in classroom. Like 5th graders, I talk to their teachers and be like, "So who's showing up for your classes?" And and it would be like the same thing. So kids just start to shut down. So online does not work for everybody. It works for some. I'm going to echo some of the other thoughts about letting the parents choose, right? And it seems pretty simple to me. If a kid is sick, don't send them to school. Very simple, right? It's pretty easy. If a parent wants to put a mask on a kid, put a mask on a kid. If that makes you feel safer, do it. If it doesn't, then don't. I think I heard, and I'm not sure because it's hard to hear with your guys' masks when you're talking, but I think I heard that outside we could take masks off. Is that correct? Oh, fantastic. Okay, so that's good for PE, at least if we can try and do as many activities outside as possible. For those winter months, then we're back to the same thing, right? So my push is just, and it's doubtful, I'm sure, but putting that in the parents' hands and letting them choose would be my suggestion on that. It's so difficult for kids to get the exercise they need, and from last year to this year with I see a kid from, like I said, this is my 17th year, so I see a kid come back from 2nd to 3rd grade and they're double in size. It's across the board. It's insane. And that's due to the online learning and people, they're just sitting behind their computers, and they're doing whatever they're doing. They're not being active. They're not out with their friends. They're not, playing. Everybody's sheltered, right? And so when they come back, that's a huge problem. It always has been a huge problem, obesity, childhood obesity, right? And now it's even worse. And we need to fight that. One way to build up your immune system is to exercise. Well, how do you do that efficiently when you got these things on your mouth? You can't really do it. I'll try and finish here real quick. Vaccines, though, I just saw this morning, it came out that Kate Brown said that all teachers need to be vaccinated by October 13th, or if FDA approves it ahead of time, and that's a mandate for them. So I have a strong opinion against that. With that being said, my wife and I we were pushed and scared into getting vaccinated. So I am, not willingly, but I am. And that was due to medical reasons for my wife, and not that it had anything to do with immunocompromisation or anything like that. It was just for medical procedures. With that being said, if I wasn't forced or we weren't forced, pushed, scared into, intimidated into getting it, then if I was forced to be able to have to get the vaccine to be able to teach, I might reconsider my career path, to be honest with you. I don't think that's a choice that should be forced by our government. I really don't. So I appreciate you guys. I don't think I said that at the beginning, but I really do appreciate you guys being our school board and making these tough decisions that you have to make. And I don't envy the positions you're in, and especially in this, one of the hardest, most difficult times in our lifetimes. So thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you for that, JR. Next up, we have Megan McAllister.
Hi, I'm Megan McAllister. Sorry, is that better? I first just want to thank everyone for just taking the health and safety of our children so seriously in this community. I'm really excited for our students to be back in school this year. As a parent of a child with special health needs, I want you to think outside the box this year in regards to their education, especially if the parent is uncomfortable with them attending in-person school. Distance learning was not optimal. It's a great time to think about outdoor school, small hybrid cohorts, assisting parents with homeschooling. I just think this is a great opportunity to think outside the box. Distance learning was not ideal for many families. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for that, Megan. All right, next we have Jennifer Gunter.
I imagine the green light means it's still on, correct? Okay, I'm back. Jennifer Gunter. Okay. I had originally wanted to speak on behalf of masks and the negative impacts on mental and emotional health in children, D21 protocol, and efforts for a virus that is here to stay for generations. With the announcement today of our complete tyrannical governor mandating vaccines for all school teachers and staff and for healthcare employees, I feel the full burden of protection placed on my heart. Grief for our district staff, as well as our children. I would strongly encourage District 21 teachers to band together for their medical freedoms, for themselves and their colleagues. There will never be just this time for any health mandate. Every time you give in to healthcare that is experimental with no long-term data for the latter risks, you are just showing acceptance and compliance. The power grabs will get worse and farther reaching. You and your health is valuable. With adverse case reactions and data stacking by the day at stunning results of a negative impact on our health and the unknown longevity of the effects of this unapproved vaccine, we are the stage 3 human trials. There is no long-term data. Let me repeat that. There is no long-term data for this vaccine. With breakthrough cases happening daily, the vaccinated are still becoming sick and still able to get and give the C19. I have heard a lot over the last months about it's not that serious, it's just a vaccine, and if everyone would get vaccinated to 70%, we could just go back to normal, back to no masks, says Kate Brown. Yet here we are. Since when does the government know what is best for your household and your health? I'm here to say you do not have to do anything that you do not want. The right of choice still remains freely in this society. We are being persecuted into submission against our will. Anyone over the age of 18 has been able to get the vaccine, has heard about it, has had a chance. Those who have not gotten it today, they've made their choice. In light of the governor's unconstitutional mandate for our healthcare and our educators, I feel the need to now address the future of D21's path and offering vaccines to our children and the future of having on-site availability on campus. because a vaccine mandate of our youth is fast approaching. For those unfamiliar, Oregon has a right to medical choice at the age of 15. Not a right to choose whether to wear a paper cloth on their face, but a right to choose for injectables and for all healthcare has to offer. I've watched D21 and our own town solicit to our youth in ways of cash prizes, pizza, and music in a social setting. It is revolting how our youth has been preyed upon in the middle of hard times by lures of soliciting food and activities for a C19 vax event. Healthcare resides a family's topic, a healthcare topic with your own personal physician. The school should take no part in blanketing or promoting a vaccine that is not approved, but only authorized on a trial basis with food, music, and activities as bribery. You have decided to let our kids be told to muzzle. You chose to support something even though evidence and science and basic rules of decency disagrees. ODE in their live referenced only one medical study done in Oregon for a mass success. None of the 10 other studies that stated masks do not help. But I guess it only takes 1 point to win a game. COVID-19 poses little to no risk for our children. 4.2 million children have tested positive for C19. A total of 0.008% of them have died. Then move to the flu. The CDC estimates 480 children died of the flu in the 2018-2019 season. This is more death from the flu for children than any child has died in a year and a half of COVID-19. Not one board member I have heard yet suggest a daily vitamin C and D3 protocol, practices for natural immune support at our school, but yet our district offers milk, donuts, and sugary carbs to start every day. 1.4 million people died from TB in 2019. That is a correction, I quoted those numbers wrong last time. Worldwide, TB is a top 10 cause of death and the leading cause of a single infectious agents above AIDS and HIV. 2019, 1.9 million children fell ill with TB globally. Fact, the flu is more of a danger to our children than COVID-19. No masks were ever discussed or implemented then. Requiring a child to wear a mask for something that proposes a threat falls very close to definition of Munchausen by proxy. We are teaching our youngest youth the air is toxic and everyone around them is sick. Learning to read and not be able to see the teacher enunciate the words makes for a long process and a drastic impact on a child's development. What about their developing immune system and the long-term effects of masking a child? Have you asked all those questions as a board? Medical mandates have no place in a free society. Again, I strongly encourage District 21 teachers to stand up for their health and their colleagues. No one should tell you that you are mandated for a vaccine to retain your job. I repeat again. Medical mandates have no place in a free society. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And next we have Benjamin Warren.
Good evening. When I left the meeting last week, I had a feeling that, a number of, Wuhan flu mitigation strategies would be implemented at this school district. I had a feeling that you guys were going to require masks. I knew that you guys were going to require social distancing. I don't think I would have ever imagined that you would limit children to, small cohorts. That's just fundamentally alien to my understanding, my memory of what school was, K through 12. It was all about learning with large groups and then going out into the playground and playing with even larger groups, meeting more people. And, but back to the mitigation strategies, my one question was, what metrics would you guys be using to evaluate these strategies and whether they're working and whether they are necessary? I don't think I heard a single word about that. I don't think, I heard the promise that these strategies might not be necessary in the future, but I did not hear any criteria. And I do not know if there is criteria or if you, okay, I saw that. I don't have my glasses on, but I did see you shake your head. Or if you're just relying on the CDC. Over the past 15 years, I've worked for a number of companies. I've basically hopped from one job to another, so I've got quite a kind of broad range of experience. I've seen some pretty common traits among, organizations that are doomed to failure, and some traits that are common to organizations that succeed. I've worked for a dryland wheat farm that had been in the hands of the same family for 120 years, and God willing, maybe 120 years longer. But I've also worked for a company that got slapped with hundreds of millions of dollars in fines because they killed their customers with shoddy products. And they knew the products were shoddy, but they hid them. And the traits common to the organizations that are doomed to failure are unclear policies, obsession with safety, and impossible goals. Impossible goals like shielding people, preventing all transmission of an influenza virus. Obsession with safety, considering safety, always safety, and ignoring every other factor, not realizing that you have to balance safety with getting the job done. There's a cost to all of these policies you are implementing. Already, my generation and the younger generation, Generation Z, we grew up with, our heads in our phones. We grew up stunted socially. We grew up isolated. And these policies of, isolating children even further, they're going to hurt the children. So we're back to unclear policies and unclear criteria for success. There needs to be criteria for whether these policies work and when they can be relaxed or even discarded because you find out that they do not work. And that criteria needs to be shared publicly so that we know you are holding to that criteria and not moving the goalpost continuously. Because when this is all handled behind closed doors, it is very, very easy to move the goalposts. Just hide the failure. We can't let this school district fail because that means a whole generation of kids fails to be prepared for life as an adult. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Benjamin. All right, he was the last one that had signed up. Is there anyone else that would like to say?
Can I follow up something on that?
Sure. No, I'm okay with that. I know that there's a lot of ideas and stuff, so I want to make sure you guys get them out, please.
Sorry, JR running again. Just forgot one thing. So the reason I was talking about the vaccines being forced, not forced, that kind of thing, and the only reason I even mentioned my personal, like getting vaccine and my wife's getting personal vaccine is that I said we were scared and forced into doing that because of medical procedures that she needed to do. That being said, she got the vaccine, right? 2 weeks later, now she has all kinds of heart problems. So she's been on high blood pressure medication. It's not a coincidence, right? And I know other people, other friends that I had that have received the vaccine and had pericarditis. So, I mean, being forced into doing something that you're not, if you have the choice, right, which everybody should have the choice, but if you're forced into doing something you don't want to do, and you don't necessarily need to do it because you don't know what the long-term effects are going to be, I don't see how the government can force us to do that as teachers. And so that's just one of my big concerns and obviously not for me because I'm already vaccinated, but for other teachers who maybe don't want to speak up, don't want to have that voice because they don't want to get the vaccine, but you know, they're feeling like they're forced to. So I guess that was my whole point in that tonight. And then, you know, same thing for like, let's say young female teachers, right? Who maybe want to go out and have a family or something like that later on. We don't know long-term effects, if that's going to have any bearings or not. Maybe I'm just, you know, talking down my rear here, but, and that could be the case, but you just don't know. So anyway, I appreciate you guys letting me take a couple more seconds to explain that. So that was one of the big things is like, yeah, anyway, sorry, thank you.
Thanks again, JR. And I think it's all, would you like to say some words as well? And if you could just make sure you state your name so we can just get it noted down.
So my name is, was it okay to take the mask off here so that people can hear? Did I see somebody else's? Yeah, okay. So I have just actually a couple of questions for you guys, if that's okay. I want to know how the masks are going to be enforced at school. Oh, my name is Sarah McKenna. And so I'd like to know from anybody how the masks are going to be enforced during the school day.
Typically don't just kind of do one-on-one. I've been doing some, but typically we don't just start answering questions. It's more just a comment. So if you can get them out, and if you do have specific questions, I would just have you direct them to Superintendent Bernal for specific questions like that so that they can be responded to probably via email or something. But you're more welcome to put it out here so that we hear it and we can take it. And then since you do have specific questions, I'll have you fill this out after you're done just so we have your contact info as well.
Perfect.
To then follow up.
Okay. So I have a few questions then, just to give you an idea of what I'm going to be looking for. I would like to know how the mask will be enforced during the school day. I can only imagine that middle school and high school, there are going to be a few kids who will be problematic with not wanting to comply to that. I want to know what the punishment for refusal will be, how those punishments will be enforced. And I would also like to know what each and every one of you has done as a board member to be a voice for us as the parents to these students, and to fight for us, for you having the power and the voice to do so, to allow us to make the choices for our children that we know are right or wrong. So I'll be looking to get an answer to all of those. I'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Sarah, can you just come up and just fill out your info, please?
Who do I give it to?
We'll just take it, so.
Oh, is this just for
Yeah.
student? Okay.
Yeah, that way we can. Jennifer, I see you had another idea.
I just have two very specific questions. I can sit here.
Yeah, state them out now, that's fine.
Can you hear me? So I'd like clarification on what is visual screening? Who decides the rules for that? What does that look like? What's that look like? What's visual screening? What looks sick to one may not be sick to another. Also, what about, do the kids or the families still have a choice if they are not immune compromised to stay at home like last year for online? And last one is, are you guys going to offer someone in student council to accompany the adults in the teachers lounge on their break to make sure that they're doing what they should be doing? that's it, that's all I got.
Okay, thank you for that, Jennifer.
Yeah.
All right, last, okay, we got another taker, all right. Come on up, please.
Hello, my name is Lindsay LeBreton, and my husband and I have lived here. He grew up here, but I grew up in Estacada, and we've lived here almost 20 years. I actually would just like to read an email letter that was sent out from Horizon Christian School. We chose last year to take our freshman to Horizon so that she could be in class. Thank you. And then our son is going to be a kindergartner, so he was in preschool last year at Horizon. So to start off with, we've got 3 kids. Our oldest is in college, playing sports with masks. Our second is now going to be a sophomore. She's a 3-sport athlete, wants to be playing sports without a mask. And then we have a 5-year-old starting kindergarten this year, needing to learn to read, learn sound recognition, all of that. I'm a teacher by trade, not teaching currently, but because my little guy was going to be full-time kindergarten, I was hoping to start subbing for the school district, start working my way back into the schools, whether private or public, I'm not sure. And then my husband's an eye doctor here in the Dalles, so healthcare professional. So this mandate affects us greatly for the future of our staying in our community. So I just thought that this letter really spelled out very lovely how some of the perspectives of a teacher. And so that's what I can attest to, as well as a parent. So last year, all Horizon students and staff wore masks or shields 100% of the time until March. When we were allowed to take off masks, we were, if we were outside. Not many other schools have experienced this as they were still in distance learning or shortened days. There were some giant concerns that arose after watching students try to communicate, learn, grow, and develop friendships. Some of the things that we noticed as the school year progressed were that students had frequent headaches, social emotional disconnects, students experiencing severe anxiety, young students developing facial tics, a huge leap in speech disfluencies. In our older grades, which again, I have got kids in all ranges as a parent, in our older grades, we noticed the hoodie effect take place, in which students that were normally engaged and involved transitioned into students that easily tuned out or disconnected in class discussions. Similarly to what you would expect if you were allowed a student to put their hood up in class. For them, the mask became a way to hide and disengage with both their teachers and peers. It was really quite sad. Teachers were frustrated because it is nearly impossible to read a class when half of their face is covered. As you know, teaching is a process of back and forth between the students and their teacher. A good teacher feeds off of classroom response in order to know how to slow down or speed up or repeat or retry something new. In class discussion or direct instruction, the mask disconnected us from our students while trying to read facial expressions for confusion or comprehension. It was very blinding and disorienting for everyone. It greatly hindered teachers and students from being able to do their job well. And again, I didn't say who this was written from. This is the elementary principal at Horizon. I want to do everything possible to protect our students. These students mean the world to me, and I feel personally responsible for keeping them safe. This is an incredibly difficult decision because we are being forced to weigh out the benefits and risks of masking. I believe that masking protects us from virus, but I have also seen firsthand the educational and social damage that occurs when students wear them for long periods of time in an educational setting. So much of elementary education is social. When half of your child's face is covered, the social side takes an enormous hit. It will be interesting to see what the rest of the schools notice as they try this for the first time over the upcoming school year. We will still continue to implement as many other safety procedures as we can. All children will be screened upon entry to the building. Elementary teachers will be wearing shields when giving whole group instruction and masks when working up close. Temperature checks, classroom cohorting, spacing at lunch and chapel, additional cleaning and disinfecting, frequent and routine hand washing, and keeping all students home unless they are 100% healthy will be the continued protocol. So much like the things that you guys are implementing as well. They are choosing to do waivers for people who are have a health risk, or even speech and language pathologists can use clear masks. So I guess those are some things that I would just request you to think about. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Evan. All right, anyone else out there looking to ask questions, say comments or anything? Okay. Before we move on, we do have one additional agenda item. Just kind of in closing, I want to thank you again. This is super helpful in terms of hearing from all the different perspectives. As you guys sit here listening along with me, we have a varying or a spectrum wide of difference of opinion and everything. So, you know, we're doing our best to kind of meet as much as we can of the requests and kind of asks, which is difficult. One thing I did want to clarify though is that policy versus Oregon revised statutes or Oregon administrative rules. So we as a board, we do set policy. You can find those on our website. We do implement policy, and we have those reviews, updates, or implementation throughout the normal course of the academic year, right? What we're actually having to implement and enforce are not that. I mean, we do, but these new elements like the masking, what we heard today earlier from the governor this morning on the vaccines, those are actually Oregon administrative rules. And as board members, part of our oath is to actually enforce those. So in some respects, our hands are tied on that. And I know that's frustrating. So instead of policy making, then we become more of advocates. And I think someone asked about, you know, what are we doing to, you know, speak on behalf of our community for students and all that. So personally for me, I've actually over the last year been fortunate to get on some state level committees as a board member. And so I do take all this and actually do feed that up the chain. I actually had a conversation just before this meeting with an executive board member from the Oregon School Boards Association. They had a meeting with the governor, actually at the same time as this meeting at 6. And actually did share some of the feedback and kind of what we're hearing in our community. So there is some of that dialogue. As I heard a lot of you speak today, I know that, you know, in some respects, and I kind of feel the same way, is that there is no end in sight right now. We're having these rules and, you know, asks, but there is no end in sight. There are no metrics. That is actually one of my asks that I did share that I wanted to get to the governor today, is that we need to understand how do we navigate, and how do we as a community work towards something. We don't have a something right now when it comes to some of these elements, and so I have been advocating for that because I think it is helpful. I think as represented tonight, we can all come together and kind of as a community rally for what we need to do for our kids, okay? And so, again, thank you I just want to make that distinction real quick, just policy versus just kind of the state laws and the rulemaking that's been happening by the various entities. Because that is a little different than last year. So I know that, you know, what's been in the news, there's now civil penalties and things that obviously caught our ears, and OSHA is now involved as well. So that's part of it, is they've now shifted to actually their rulemaking authority via the Oregon Health Authority, and now have made these OARs, as we refer to them. And you saw a lot of those cited that we have to follow. So again, I thank you guys for sharing all your comments tonight. As a reminder, we do have our regularly scheduled board meeting next week. So as Superintendent Bernal said, our plans are needing to be submitted to the Department of Ed on the 27th, so the Friday, so right after our meeting. So as you kind of dig into it, if there's anything else that you would like us to hear, please feel free to send that in, or come again on Thursday of next week to say any additional comments or feedback as well. So with that, we'll move to our next agenda item, and that is Ms. Flack.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members, for adding this to your agenda item. As you know, we've been working on our seismic grant program with the rehabilitation of the Kurtz Gym. We're a ways into it. One of the initial items we were looking at is whether or not we can repair the heating in the gym. Turns out we can't, really. So in order to get heating and cooling in there, I would like to propose, it's a little chunk of change, but we already have contractors in there working on it, so it's a minimal add in the big picture of it. But I'd like to add $300,000 to the contract, GMCG contract for Griffin Construction in order to put in heating and cooling in the gym. And this will install 4 new units on the top of the roof and will take care of the issues that we have existing. This also comes from our enterprise funds, which I would refer to as the Google money, which is used for capital projects for the most part. The first 5 years were intended for curb appeal, which we have complied with, but this also will help with the efficiency of the gym and the heating and cooling issues that we keep hearing about. So we do respectfully request your approval of the $300,000, which is already. I was just going to add, it's already in the budget, so I'm not asking for budget, just the approval of the contract.
All right, thank you, Ms. Flack. Any questions from board members or Director Nelson?
So the system we're putting in, is that a new system, an HVAC system, which both heats and cools, or are we just repairing the heating system that was there?
I didn't want it to yell at you. That is a great question. It is a new heating and cooling system. What we're planning on doing is, that might help. So essentially, the existing system taps into the steam system of it. This one also includes piping of natural gas lines, so we aren't feeding into the existing boiler system, but it is heating and cooling, and it's a new system that will be separate from the existing heating system in the other part of the school.
Thank you, Director Nelson. Any other questions from other board members or comments? Rebecca, Director Thistlethwaite.
Just a point of clarification. My understanding is there isn't an existing cooling system in the gym. Is that correct? There's not air conditioning currently, and this would add air conditioning?
You are correct.
Oh, that sounds like a great idea in a place that gets very hot.
All right, thank you, Director Thistlethwaite. Director Jones?
Yeah, I just want to say I agree. If we have to use it for at least another 10 years because of the seismic work in the agreement, then AC is, all I hear is how hot the gym is. So I think it's a good idea.
Thank you, Director Jones. Director Stevens?
Having been a coach at the Dallas High School for basketball, the girls, I can speak firsthand over the last 3.5 years, having to have practices at 6 a.m. during summer basketball in order just to keep it cool enough for our players, both the males and females, to be able to practice. So to hear it's AC is definitely a good sell. Also, we're already working on the building right now, so that's going to keep the cost down too, right?
Director Stevens, any other board members? All right, and I would echo the same thing. I think it's a wise investment. I mean, that facility gets used by a multitude of sports and by the community, so I think it's, wow. So I mean, I see it as a great investment. So with that, there's no other comments. I'll take a motion.
I move to approve the budget for capital improvements for the current gymnasium seismic project in the additional amount of $300,000 from the enterprise funds totaling $2,420,080, and to authorize the increase in contract amount for the existing GMP contract with Griffin Construction LLC.
Director Nelson, do you have a second? Second. All right, we've got a second from Director Stevens. All right, so I've got a motion to approve the budget for capital improvement for the Kurtz Gym seismic project in the additional amount of $300,000 from the enterprise funds totaling $2,420,080, and to authorize the increase in contract amount for the existing GMP contract with Griffin Construction LLC. Any comments or discussion from the board?
I have something on a different note than this. It's rare we ever get to say goodbye to someone leaving our school district, but Alex, can you just raise your hand there? He's our interim facilities manager right now, and he will be leaving, if I'm not mistaken, at the end of the month. We have a full-time person coming in. Alex, I just want you to know, and I want to say in front of everybody, I've gotten to know you during the short time you've been here. I've heard multiple teachers who've talked about you to me, a couple principals, some admins, and even more importantly, coaches for me. And they've all said the same thing, that you've been incredibly attentive, you get back to people right away, and that you actually have made change in your very short time being here. I just want you to know personally, I'll speak for them and myself, that you're going to be missed. So thank you for what you've done while you've been here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Stevens. With that, I guess we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please raise a hand and say aye. Aye. Okay. Any opposed? See none. All right, motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Flapp. All right, that concludes our final item of the agenda. So with that, I want to thank everyone that came out tonight and shared and provided comments and feedback. I really appreciate it.